Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Jalarzak, product development and marketing coach and mom of three. Learn from and get inspired by women entrepreneurs killing it in the product space. Each episode, we will share the latest trends, proven strategies, and inside secrets of the product world, all designed to give you greater confidence to create your own success through a product venture. Let's do this. Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. Today, I'm interviewing Lisa Pedersen. Lisa is a social media mentor and strategist whose passion lies in helping female entrepreneurs own their online presence with confidence. She helps business owners create social media plans that are smart, simple, and sustainable, and that authentically engage with their ideal audience. Welcome to the show, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you here. I know that my audience is going to get such great benefit from listening to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole, for having me. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to have our chat.
Yeah, let's dive in. Okay, first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and your journey to becoming a social media mentor and strategist?
Sure. So I was in the corporate world for quite a few years, doing everything from graphic design and then moving up to marketing. And I was a corporate marketing manager for one of the big banks in Canada. And I did that for a while, and then it was time to have a family. And I thought, you know what, it's so hard to kind of juggle everything. And I wanted kind of maybe just move to a smaller company and have a little bit more flexibility. And I had someone, offered me a position as marketing manager for a smaller healthcare software company. And it was in marketing. And I thought, this is fantastic. So I did that. And I had my first child, and it was amazing. And it was so hard to go back to work after that first year. I know we're super blessed to be able to have a year off, but it was still really hard. I think any of the moms out there know exactly what I'm talking about. And then we decided to have our second, and I couldn't go back. I'd had all this amazing experience in the corporate world, and then in the startup or, kind of mid-startup world. And I had all these wonderful colleagues and connections, but it just didn't seem like the direction I wanted to go. At that point, I had started a blog, like a parenting and lifestyle blog. And I'm a big researcher. I research everything. So all my friends would be like, I don't know, like, why did you pick that stroller or whatever it was? And I had all these reasons, living in an urban area, you had to get on and off transit and such. So long story short, they, convinced me to start a blog to put all this crazy information that I had amassed into a blog. And so then I had a company reach out and say, are you working contract? We got your name from someone. Would you want to do social media for us part-time? We love your voice online, your blog personality. And that was kind of the start of it. I've always kind of been a techie kind of person. I love, technology and anything new. And I'm, an early adopter. And so that's kind of how it started. I already had the marketing background and the project management and all that stuff. And I love people, as you probably know through our chats in the past. So that's kind of how it started. And it's, almost 10 years later, and I've worked with some amazing companies. I've done, marketing and social media strategies with them, with their teams. I've consulted on blogger influencer programs, and it runs the gamut. I've got to work with some amazing PR firms, and it's just been a really amazing ride.
Awesome. Yes, I think that many women can resonate with what you've said about not wanting to go back to 9 to 5 after you've had kids. I know I went through that same journey, and I know a lot of women who just after having or being on maternity leave, it just hurts them. Like I remember, physically, I felt so much pain to actually think about going back to work because, you just don't want to leave this little baby that you've brought up and then go back to the regular life. So I totally resonate with that. And so what kind of businesses do you say you work with now, and what would you say would be your specialty?
Sure. So like I said, in the past, when I first started out on my own, put out my shingle, I was working a lot with smaller companies, and then I would get referred by friends or colleagues to, some bigger corporations. They'd have a friend in a marketing department at, like an RESP company or another bank or whatever. And so I've worked with, and in various different capacities with companies, both large and small. What I have learned though about myself and the way I like to work, and from my clients' feedback, what my I guess my forte is, if that's the right word. I've had a lot of people say to me, to focus on the mentoring and the consulting and the coaching, because I take something that is hard to understand or intimidating for people. This is what I've been told, at least. And I bring it down to a level that's understandable.
Right.
And it's like they can take it in small chunks, it's like digestible. And
Awesome.
so I guess from what I've been told, they like the way I can approach things that are difficult to them, and I bring it down to a really manageable level. So smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, that sort of thing is kind of what I'm focusing on now.
I agree with that, because I heard you in a workshop with the Moms Entrepreneur Group, and you gave a workshop on social media, and it was very digestible and easy to understand. So that was awesome. Yes. So what would you say that businesses or people struggle with when it comes to social media? I know social media is such a huge bucket, but if you were to say, like, what do most people come to you with?
So especially small to medium business owners, or even, business owners that, have, let's say, $1 million businesses, but they either haven't, hopped on the social media bandwagon, or they have, but they're not all in. That's usually the issue for any of those segments of business owners. So whether you're small, whether you're big, it's that they don't know where to start, or they don't know where to focus. So a lot of times they try to be all things to all people. They try to be on every single social media platform, which is great if you're like a Procter & Gamble or like Indigo, some, a really big company that has an entire team devoted to this. Yeah. But many times, if it's a business owner and like one person, or, two people, or it's just themselves rather, it gets very time consuming, overwhelming, and they put their time and efforts into doing what they think they should be doing, and it's not reaping the rewards that they want to see. It's not, there's not the return on investment that they thought they would get. So when I get business owners coming to me, it's often because they want me to help them with the smart, simple, sustainable element, which is really why I push that. That's kind of my motto. Because we really do need to make these things, bring them down to a digestible level where people feel they can do them and that they are sustainable, whatever those tasks are and whatever platforms they decide to focus on. So I help business owners do that, focus in on what is going to, get them the best return. And I don't just mean monetary, because social's really hard for a small business to monetize unless you pay, huge money for like HubSpot or one of the big tools. Smaller businesses can't do that. They can't justify that. So the way I promote social to them, or my services to them, is in a really authentic and realistic way. It's like, this is not going to make you a ton of money. However, it will dramatically increase your brand presence, your brand credibility. And that's, social is where people go to find out about brands. So if you're not on social, you've already lost. It's like a lost opportunity, right? You can't even get that customer because you're not there.
Yeah, I think that's so true, because people sometimes think that social media, you could sell on social media and people will buy products on social media, but it's actually not the case. They need to find out about your brand. And as you said, learn about you first before they're going to buy anything. And it's so true with overwhelm. I think that's the biggest thing that small businesses face, is that overwhelm, because there are so many systems and things you have to learn. And social media could be a job on its own. So simplifying
3 jobs.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you've got to always create content, and it's always new and fresh and whatnot. And I know that myself, I had struggled with that as well. So I would love if you can help our listeners create sort of a, as you said, smart, sustainable business,
Smart,
or
simple, sustainable. Yeah.
smart, simple, sustainable social media plan, what would you say would help people the most in terms of coming up with something consistent? Because I think that's the other thing, consistency,
Right.
creating consistent content and being of value and helping gain that presence in terms of awareness in the
Okay.
marketplace.
Yeah. Consistency is the key, really. And I think just being honest with yourself about how much time you actually have to devote to it.
Mhm.
That's one thing that people really have a hard time, in my opinion, from my experience, wrapping their heads around. A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be on, 3 platforms, and I'm going to write, white papers for LinkedIn, or, thought pieces for LinkedIn, and I'm going to become a thought leader there. And what they're not understanding is, in order to do any of these things well, you actually have to put far more time into it than you really do think you need. So
Mhm.
my suggestion with, for example, a small business or medium business owner would be to really take stock of how much actual time you can slot into your schedule for social every week. And then I
Okay.
break it down by tasks. And I always suggest task batching for clients. So for example, sometimes they're overwhelmed with trying to figure out what to post 2 days out. So my suggestion is always think of things falling into 3 categories: resources, inspiration or motivation, and then your actual product or service. And each of those 3 things can be in rotation, like those are the themes for posts that can be in rotation on your social pages. The general rule, and this is again, open to interpretation. Some people think, oh, that's way too much or way too little. The general rule is roughly the 80-20 rule, like it is in life. Um, 20% should be your products or services, and 80% should be other things that bring your desired audience to your social pages or your website in this case. I mean, it really
Right.
does apply to marketing in general. Um, so in this case, for social, do people think of it this way. Do people go to your social pages just to be bombarded with, hey, there's a sale, hey, there's this,
Right.
hey, there's that? I mean, if you have a sale or discount, yes, people want to see that.
Right. Right.
They're always going for discount codes. I know I am. If I'm planning on buying something, I always go to the person's or the brand's site, profile rather, on social media to try to see if they're offering something special.
Mhm.
But in general, they don't just want to see buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff.
Right.
They want to see, oh, look at that, I don't know, cute cat video or something. I mean, whatever you think your audience likes. And this is where, you get some A/B testing done. You try different things and you check out your analytics and your stats in the whatever platform you're using, and
Mhm.
you see what worked and what didn't.
Right. And
So go ahead.
yeah, and just for product businesses, like,
Yeah.
would you say that applies to product businesses as well? Because many times I'll see products and their like Instagram feed, and you see product after product after product on their
Right.
feed, and that's it.
Right.
And so I don't think personally that that works, but I wanted to get your thoughts on what should they post if they're not a personal brand, they are a product-based business, and what how would you approach that?
Okay. So for example, um, I totally agree with you. First off, product brands, like product sites or product companies, retailers, should not just post about their products all the time. But there are lots of fun ways, for example, Bubbly.
Mhm.
I'm not even referring, I mean, I haven't looked in depth too much even into their social. I just browse it occasionally. So I haven't looked lately. But in general, their stuff is funny. So even though they're promoting their product,
Mhm.
that's not the first thing you think about when you think of Bubbly, is it? When you think of the
Mhm.
brand, because they have Michael Bublé associated with it, and he's always being silly and trying to change his name on the cans. It's like, it's giving someone a laugh, and that is, in my mind, considered a resource or a motivation or inspirational piece.
Mhm.
So you can actually, for product retailers, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Basically, you can still promote your product, but you could do it in a funny way. You could put a funny quote with it. You could, run a contest where you want people to share how they've used your product. Let's say it's a children's product of some kind or a family product. You want people to share cute pictures of their kids using your product. That's a great way of increasing engagement, getting your community involved, attracting new audience, new, portion of your prospective audience to come and see you more often. And it gives people a smile. So that's actually product and, like I said, resource or inspiration. So those are the kinds of things that, you just have to get creative and think of, what do you want to be known for? Are you a brand that wants to be known just for some dry product pictures?
Right.
Hell no.
Exactly.
You want people to think of you like we think of bubbly, which is like funny and witty and interesting, right?
Right. You want to give your brand a personality and a
Totally.
reason for being, and then you want to offer value at the same time.
Totally.
And going back to the time spent on social media, because this is something that I think about often. We can get lost in the rabbit hole and spend a ton of time doing things that are not of value. How much time would you say someone like a solopreneur or small business should spend on their channels, social media channels?
Well, that's a little bit different depending on your, like each business owner's desired outcomes. Let's just put it that way. So if they, really think they need to be posting every day, that's going to be a very different time commitment than, and also depending on the kinds of posts they want to post every day. If they want to do a lot of video, that obviously takes a lot more time and energy. And if they want to do, just stills or flat lays, a still could be a lot quicker than having to set up a flat lay, which is, like a special, like artsy way of taking a picture. Right. So I would say, again, start with how often you think you can actually devote time to it and how much time. So if it's, 2 hours a week or 3 hours a week, make sure that's scheduled into your calendar so that you sit down and you do tasks related to whatever you're working on, whether it's doing all your photography in a kind of a task batching session, or if it's writing all your copy for your posts, or if it's, editing video, whatever that entails, whatever your outcomes look like for you, working towards those outcomes. I'd say, it's roughly 15 to 20 minutes per post, but that's only if you get your tasks done in batches. So if you had to sit down and take a photograph, like the quote unquote perfect photograph, right? We're all aiming for that, visual gold for Instagram. That might take longer than 10 minutes or 12 minutes. So then how much time do you have for copy and for posting, et cetera? But if you do things in batches, you can get, a couple weeks worth possibly of photos or editing or copywriting or whatever you need to get done in one shot. And you're also not, breaking up your attention and going from task to task, which has been proven to be way less efficient. It's like 60% efficiency versus like 100 or basic, something like that.
Yeah. And so many people think that they have to post their thought right away, but you actually don't. You can pre-plan everything and then schedule it all out so that it posts automatically.
Right.
So
and that's what keep notes are for, or any kind of digital note, or like even Asana or Asana, however it's pronounced, the project management software, like a software as a service, the online, it's a freebie. You can, asana.com. But I love doing things, adding content to those types of tools, because then it's like a digital Rolodex, basically, for the oldies that know what a Rolodex is. It keeps everything, you keep track of everything, all your thoughts without losing them. And you can even, clip a photo attached to it. If you had like a visual idea of what you wanted, something to look like, you can snap a quick picture or whatever and attach it. And then you can use that in your future planning. So generally speaking, 15 to 20 minutes per post total. So I'll give you a very quick breakdown of how you would do this. Let's say you have 2 hours a week. So that's what? Okay. So it's roughly like 9 posts a week, something like that. Let's say you're doing, so just round it to 10, you can probably give yourself an extra 10 minutes to figure that out, to work it, so you have 2 posts every day, one for Insta and one for Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And what you could do sometimes is, schedule everything, like one in the AM for Insta, one in the PM for Facebook. What you might want to do for some of the stories posts, if you want to, utilize stories, which are very powerful, because people, whenever you add something to your story, I don't know if you know this, but the top of your login screen will have the profiles that have recorded new videos or have added new pictures, like new images to their stories. So
Oh,
if
I
you've
didn't know
added to
that.
your story, you
Okay.
appear at the top of when someone logs into Instagram or Facebook.
Okay. I know they come at the top, but do you get categorized first versus last? You know how there's a list of different
Right. So it's
stories?
usually whoever you follow, like if you're looking at your own feed, whoever you follow that has the most recent addition to their stories will be
Oh,
first.
okay. Okay,
Generally
interesting.
speaking. I mean, they're always changing the algorithm and
Yeah.
how they do things. So that might be, that might change. But I mean, and we're all like, squirrel mode, right? We log on and we're going on to look at something, and all of a sudden we see, oh, squirrel,
Yeah,
somebody has
exactly.
posted. And so we click on that. So that's a really good way
Mm,
to get seen, is to add to your stories more. So my suggestion is, if you're doing your weekly posting, the occasional post that you do to Instagram can also be shared to Facebook. You don't want to have your feeds exactly the same, but the same goes for stories. You can also, at the same time, because Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same company, they're owned by Facebook,
mhm.
you can actually set it up so that you can choose to add it to your Facebook story as well at the exact same
Right.
time. So you're killing two birds with one stone. Just remember not to do it every single time, unless it's your personal that you're sharing to on Facebook, which is fine, because you can do that. You can share from a page to a personal profile if you want to do that. Anyway, and then like I said, I would suggest that some stories are net new content, and those can even just be shared very quickly if you're scrolling through, like we all do at 10 o'clock at night, and we're just zoned out. If you see something inspirational or something that makes you laugh in someone's timeline, you just
Mhm.
click on the little, looks like a paper airplane in the
Mhm.
bottom, like right below the photo that you're looking at, the post, and you can actually share that to your feed instantaneously. I would suggest maybe adding a few words or a cute sticker, giving people context as to why you're sharing it. Like, thought this was super inspirational, and then put a little arrow, or just leave it at that. But that's a really great way to add content to your stories without really having to do much work.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, and you're
So,
sharing other brands or
yeah,
other profiles content, which
right.
also engenders a lot of goodwill, and they're most
Mm,
likely going to share something of yours.
that's
Tip for the
cool. I
day.
never would have thought of that. Yeah. And then I think you also mentioned in your workshop about engaging with other content. So making sure you have time to engage. Can you speak a little bit
Hmm.
about that?
Of course. So thanks for reminding me about that. That's one key pillar of the breakout for the time that you have allotted in your schedule for social.
Mhm.
So you should definitely set aside a portion of that time to engage, because the whole point of social media is that it is exactly that. It's social. And if you're only posting to your own profiles, but not actually commenting on, complementary businesses profiles or influencers profiles. And when I say influencers profiles, it's not just because they're an influencer. However, if you truly like their offering, their mission, what they, post, if it's in line with your values or what you see as your desired audience, then definitely engage with influencers, reach out to them, build up the relationships with them, because there's nothing better than organic-ish. So it's, these
Mm.
things are a little bit tricky, but if you can start a relationship somewhat organically by truly liking somebody else's, whether it's a brand, an influencer, whatever, posts, and commenting genuinely on them, then there's often a chance in the future, if they also share your admiration, mutual admiration society going on there, then they'll often work with you. And yes, when I say organic-ish, because sometimes it is a paid relationship that turns into, but it still has an organic beginning. And that's
Mm.
super important. So engagement's really important. Go out, put, a couple authentic comments on posts that you really like. share others' content. As I mentioned before, it's very easy to do in stories, and see where it goes.
And that's so true for product businesses as well, to reach out to
Definitely.
influencers and be on their list, so to speak, top of mind. And
Hmm.
I've known of other product businesses who start to develop that relationship with influencers, and eventually they do get mentioned, or they get shown, or they even
Totally.
ask to be featured or whatever, and it's not a hurdle because they would already be top of mind. So yeah, that's a
Right.
great point. Actually, going back to posting on Facebook and Instagram at the same time,
Hmm.
um, do you believe that people should and businesses should design their post according to the platform? So make their post slightly different for Facebook than it would be for Instagram? Because I know I'm guilty of
Right.
posting to both the same thing, and I've heard that it's beneficial to post individually and sort of like especially for what the platform's designed for.
Yes. Okay. Totally agree with that comment. And what you have heard is correct. However, being a strategist that works with smaller businesses, quite often, I am very transparent in that I have some opinions that aren't necessarily like social media 101. Like,
Hmm.
I know the rules, but I also am okay breaking those rules occasionally, because sometimes there are overarching elements such as, financial constraints, time constraints. Like, we can't all hire a social media person full time, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're doing it ourselves. So while yes, that is best practice to have separate posts um, and to gear them toward the platform that they're on, there are some times when you just want to get your content out and it doesn't have to be perfect. So if that means, because you don't have time to do a third version of that post for a different platform, you put it out and it's
Hmm.
fine. Like, it's,
Okay.
yes, you're not going to see this from Indigo or like the big brands, right?
Mm.
But there, we have to give ourselves some grace, and we have to be kind with ourselves to not be so, tough on ourselves that we always feel we have to be perfect. So you do your
Okay.
best.
Hmm.
I actually just made this mistake the other day. I totally forgot. I don't know why. I think my kids were calling me and I was distracted. But generally the rule, like, I like to share a lot on Facebook stories, or Instagram stories rather, and I shared my Facebook story. And again, it's a time thing. Like, this is what I do for a living, but yes, I still come up against this as well. So we're all very similar, mamas and fellow business owners. And so what I did was I shared a post that was great, and then I followed it up with another story that was like asking a question. And you know how in Instagram you
Mm.
can use the question widget,
Hmm.
but I forgot to click off the auto share to Facebook because Facebook stories cannot answer those.
Oh, I just did that yesterday. Okay.
But see, we all do it, so don't feel bad.
Okay.
It's just tried, and like, again, so these are the kinds of things I kind of help mentor my clients with, right? It's part of the
Right.
strategy, but it's like, we're human. We're
Yes,
not going to get it right 100% of the time,
for sure. And
right? So
if it's
that's
going to
okay.
stop you, then you might as well just keep going because you don't want to be stopped in your tracks
Right.
because of rules and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what? People would rather see an authentic
Hmm.
brand, and yes, it's not perfect, but they'd rather see your authenticity and
Hmm.
something, like a, I don't know, just knowing that you're not 100% perfect all the time, because
Hmm.
it shows you're human. And a lot of people like that. They like to see the true, authentic, personalities behind the brand. So,
Yeah,
especially
totally.
small businesses or products, right?
Right, right. And so going back to the, because you mentioned Facebook and Instagram, but I know that different products might think of other platforms. So does it depend on the product? Like, what would you recommend for product businesses in terms of what platforms they should use?
So this is actually, I don't know if I'd necessarily break it down based on like services versus products. I
Okay.
think it almost depends on what the product is or what the
Hmm.
service is. And that's where this can get a little bit tricky. It's not like a hard and fast kind of rule.
Right.
Um,
And where's your
I,
audience?
right,
Yeah.
exactly. I think the where is your audience is a big one. So for example, I have a chart that I sometimes, drag out, and it shows kind of the demographics for each platform. And so that helps my clients understand just, like step one, like the first step into kind of like what platform should I be on?
Right.
Now, that's not the be all end all, but that definitely does help inform kind of an initial decision. And then you can kind of go from there and test it out. It's like, am I getting the engagement I want? So in this case, I would say, for example, products, for example. Okay, so we're focusing on products. Generally speaking, and again, like I mentioned, there will be very different takes on depending on what the product is. But let's say a product is, we'll put a few disclaimers on this. Okay, so the product is that we're talking about hypothetically is nice to photograph, so it looks pretty. Some products are not, right?
Right.
The packaging is nice. You can do lots of things with it. Let's say it's a food product. That might be a great one as an example. Food products would be perfect for Instagram because they are so, visually beautiful, and like there's so many things you could do to it. They're just versatile in that way. So you could set it up, you could make the food. You could like have, let's say it's a food product like that you'd cook. You could put that in a dish. Like you can include it in a recipe. You could get food bloggers on board to work with you and make more beautiful photos, take photos of your product. You could, set it in a flat lay as a packaged item. So not, like the fresh dish or whatever. You could, do videos with it. You could have cooking segments on Insta stories or IGTV. So that just shows kind of the versatility of something like that kind of product on Instagram. The same could be said of Facebook. Facebook is more, it still uses and utilizes rather beautiful photos, and people love that. However, it's got more of a kind of an engagement and a back and forth. That's kind of, that's kind of its forte. Whereas Instagram is very much instant gratification. You see the picture, it's so pretty. And then you make you comment on it if you love it, and you maybe even share it in your stories. So again, it depends on what you want your audience to do as well. You're going to get a lot of attention on Instagram if you can have beautiful photos and your product photographs well, and it's versatile. And Facebook, you can obviously use those same types of photographs or use the photographs from the same photo shoot. They don't have to be the exact same pictures, but you can kind of, they do double duty. And then that's where maybe you get a conversation going about, what do you think we should add to this recipe? Or, not that you can't do that on Insta, but it's like Facebook, I think, is a little bit more geared toward that kind of thing. Does that help at all? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. I think you're right. It depends on the product. I think one platform people forget is Pinterest. I know you mentioned
Pinterest,
that before, but
Pinterest is
I
where
know it's somehow forgotten, but yeah.
Pinterest is where it's a repository for all of your Insta photos. So like I use if this then that, so ifttt.com, because Pinterest, while it's called, people refer to it as a social media channel, it's technically not a social media channel. It's more like I don't know, like a visual encyclopedia. It literally is a repository, because social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram are much more focused on kind of what's in your feed right now.
Right.
Whereas Pinterest is amazing because it's like the Google of stuff, right? Like of recipes and whatever. You go and you type in a search word and you get the most amazing things. Like I have a blog post from, I think 7 years ago that is still my highest rated pin. People just keep finding it because it's a birthday party post for like a themed party for a little girl. And it is crazy the number of times that people still pin that. So I use ifthisthenThat.com, and I logged in, I created a free account, logged in, and you can set up all kinds of triggers. So it stands for if this, in other words, if something happens, then that, something else happens. So you can set up what they call recipes or applets. And it basically means that you do one thing, you do one action, and that triggers another action.
Okay.
So I set up my Instagram to automatically post to my Pinterest board when I use a particular hashtag.
Okay. Oh, cool.
So if I add the hashtag pin or whatever, you can choose whatever you want. There are lots of recipes or applets that do different things. It automatically posts it. So if it's like a picture of me and my dog, I'm not going to post that to Pinterest. However, if it's a really fun, I don't know, like a giveaway or something I want to be out there, social media hacks that I want people to be able to find and reference, then I send that to Pinterest.
Very cool. I've heard of Tailwind. I don't know if it's the same thing, but that's neat.
Tailwind is kind of like Buffer, or
Oh, okay.
but for Pinterest. It's like
Right.
it's an app, or like a software as a service that allows you to schedule Pinterest posts. Basically, it helps stay at the top, because again, the
Okay.
more you post, the most recent post will show up in someone's feed if they follow you. So that is still the social, there's a little social element to it.
Yeah.
But it's because it's so searchable, it's just a little bit different. I feel like it's in a little bit of a different category than Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good tip. I love that. And so what, if you think of a great, like an ideal post, let's just say for a product business, that's going to attract people to your website or to opt in for emails or whatever, what would you say are the elements of a great post?
So this again depends a little bit on your brand. If your branding colors are, for example, very muted and calm, this won't apply. But generally speaking, if you use bright colors or something that's very complementary, black and white, for example, whatever still, goes in line with your brand, but is eye-catching. So whether it's colors or the image itself, obviously the image has to be high quality. It's been proven that Instagram promotes posts, or in their algorithm, they show posts more often that are higher quality than the ones that are not. So if you have a good quality, like a beautiful flat lay or something that's very eye-catching, that's obviously very important. Using some humor in your copy, if that applies to your product. Obviously, if you're selling coffins, that is not the route to go,
Right.
obviously. But usually using humor or something touching, something you yourself would want to see on social, or things that either tug at your heartstrings. I mean, just think of it this way. You're human, just like everyone else who's looking at your posts, and your desired audience is a reflection of you and your beliefs or your emotions. Just as a person, you want to speak to your audience. So whatever you think would be positive or eye-catching is what you'd want to put out to them. So, and it has to have a value add, something in it that tells them something they didn't know before, or that helps them in some way. And of course, a call to action. Ask them to do something, but give them a reason. So it should be something like, not just like, say hi below. Like that's not, that's not endearing or, or personable in any way. You need to have, maybe tell a personal story or a story about your brand. Again, something that either tugs at the heartstrings or makes them laugh. Something community oriented, something like that. And then ask for their opinion. If you tell them a story about how you're trying to, you're, let's say, a small business brand, a small brand owner. So you have like a mom and pop brand of some kind, and you're trying to get it out there, and you're sitting away at your desk, and your kids are just making like tons of noise, and you're trying to get them, their schooling done, and they're not doing it, and you're not being able to, you just can't get work done. Tell that story. That is such an important thing, especially for smaller brands. Tell that story, and then ask people what, for example, in this case, ask them what they do when their kids are going crazy and they're trying to get work done. People love to answer stuff like that.
And they also love storytelling. So that's a great point.
They do.
Yeah. Now, I've also heard it's more important to build your email list than to build the amount of followers you have, because you don't own your social feeds. You own your email list. So do you have any tips on building your email list from your social channels?
Yes, I actually got a great tip from Marie Forleo. She's a wonderful business coach and motivator and speaker. I was watching one of her webinars one time, and she said something that seems so obvious, but when I read it or when I heard it, I was like, gobsmacked. Like, why didn't I do this before? But again, we're all human, right? Like, we can't think of everything. She said, in your social bios, so, the part at the top of every, like Facebook or Instagram, whatever, tells a little bit about you. The first sentence or two, yes, tell a little bit about you, but then have an offer or something that's going to entice them. If you're, for example, I'm a social media strategist and coach. So I have a free offer for those who subscribe to my newsletter, my email
Oh,
subscription.
yeah.
So what I do is I put it in my bio, like
Right.
free mini course on 5 ways to be effective on social media. Subscribe.
Yeah.
And I just put my short link. And it is crazy that I didn't think of that before,
That is
right?
so
Like
true.
why
Why
wouldn't
would
you put it in your
right?
social?
Yeah, you think of actually a lot of people just put their website or their latest blog post, but you have to have a call to action and you want them to subscribe. So
Totally.
do
Or get
ask them.
Linktree.
Or Linktree. Yeah, that's true.
Linktree, for those that don't know, it's a
Yeah.
free service. You can get a paid version of it as well, but it's free, for the average user. And you get to add all kinds of links that, when people say click on link in bio, that can be your Linktree. And so then they go to it, and then there are direct links to all the things you want them to go to. So your
Mm.
free offer, your subscription, whatever that is, your online course, whatever you're offering, your product sale, if you have a discount or a special offer, that can be in there as well. And product videos, it would be perfect for that. So yeah.
Do you recommend it? Like, does it confuse people that when you give them all those choices, or people kind
Well,
of
so
just,
Linktree, for example, I would suggest only having no more than 5 links.
okay.
But those are just examples of what you could have. So I wouldn't suggest having all of those things. I probably should have clarified that.
Right, right.
But like on mine, I put, kind of blog. Well, if I'm doing it one for my blog, I have blog categories, and then I have like
Mm,
the latest post or the
okay.
latest 2 posts. And if I'm doing
Right.
it for my, Lisa Pedersen Media, I have subscribe and get my free mini course. I have about me. I have my website link, all those basics, but they're usually
Mm,
only no more than, I put like 5 links at the most.
right. Okay. That is a great tip to grow your email list.
Mhm.
For sure. Anything else that you can think of that would?
Oh, I was going to say doing giveaways. Like it sounds silly,
Mm,
but if you use any sort of like a raffle copter or giveaway like widget,
right.
you can often add, your own kind of entry, like an optional entry, and that can be, you're giving away. In my case, I would give away, 2 hours of social media consulting,
Right.
and enter, my giveaway, and one of the options is sign up for my newsletter. And they still get the freebie
Oh,
anyway, which is
right.
fantastic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a value add. Everyone's happy, and I don't spam them. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing you can do, or sign up for product discounts.
Right.
Um, just make sure you're not spamming your people when you do that. And I don't mean like, I'm not suggesting anyone would like do it on purpose, legitimately try to spam, but like
Right.
keep your emails to, 1 a week, unless you're doing some sort of special kind of promotion. And then you can,
Mm,
follow up with a quick e-blast about something.
right. Okay. Yeah. That's the one I heard about. It's a contest where you put that as one of the criteria to enter
Totally.
with your email. So it's perfect.
Yes.
Awesome.
And you can get that going even more by asking, if you're sharing it on Instagram. Now, every platform has different rules, but Instagram, you're allowed to ask them to tag someone who might who might be interested also in what you're offering. So
Okay.
that's a great way of getting more
That's
people
awesome.
to enter as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Awesome. Any kind of watch outs, like things that mistakes you see that are common or just things not to do on social media? Do you have any advice for that?
So, like I said, posting, I mentioned about quality before. So just
Mm-hmm.
don't post low quality items in your timeline. There's one kind of exception to this, and I don't mean it can be like really poor quality, but Instagram stories and Facebook stories are meant to be more like your on the fly, kind of more spontaneous
Right.
posts. So if you're out somewhere and you see something, I don't know, that applies either to your brand or to your kind of, your mission, whatever that is, and it's complimentary or funny, but again, still professional because you're a brand,
Yeah.
nothing crass or crude. And you want to post it, that's fine. It doesn't have to be, perfectly curated. But for the timeline, which is like the static square pictures, or, in Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
what you'd see when you scroll through, you want good quality photos. And of course, don't post anything that is, could be misconstrued as, politically insensitive.
Right.
Um, I see a lot of times people don't swap out, if they do the links, like the latest link in their Instagram bio,
Mm-hmm.
they forget sometimes to swap out the link.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like I went to one Instagram bio the other day and I was looking to buy something, get it delivered to the house, a local company. And I clicked on it and it was like a promotion from February. I'm like, oh, we're in April, at the end of April. So it's
Oh,
one of
no.
those things that's really important to stay on top of. That's why Linktree, I find, or any of
Yeah.
those kinds of services are good if you find you're swapping your links out a lot,
Right.
because sometimes it is really hard to remember to swap that link, or there're just so many things to do, right? So many little tasks.
For sure. Right. And I'd say probably another one is negativity. Just
Oh my gosh,
aim to be,
definitely.
don't, I
Yes.
guess it's a double negative. Don't have negativity in your posts.
Agreed. And don't
Yeah.
share someone's content without, that's a good
Oh,
reminder. Don't
yes.
share someone's content without fully tagging them and reposting like their name in the body as well of the text.
Oh,
So you're
that's
going to
so true.
tag the picture if it's their picture, so that you're very clearly showing that they own the rights to that photo. And then
Hmm.
you're also, most of the repost apps or Regran or whatever you use will give an option. It'll say like, make sure you paste the text from the original post into your post, so that people can see what the original post was and go back to, like, click on the person's handle if they want to see what more, what other items they have in their feed, and just check them out. That's a good
Right.
way to be social, as well as being a good social neighbor, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I've actually seen someone post exactly my post, word for word with the picture and no credit or anything.
Oh,
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow, that is insane.
yes, and very
Yeah.
unprofessional. So,
Yeah,
and
totally.
if you're a brand and you have a product in this case, just to be very specific, because to
Yeah.
your audience,
Yeah.
it's really important, if you're a brand, um, if it's not just a story. For example, I mentioned you could share from someone's timeline to your Instagram story, with that little
Hmm.
paper airplane link or icon. That's fine, because you're automatically, sharing in stories and they last for 24 hours. But if you want to share, let's say, another brand's item or an influencer's photo, the gold standard is to reach out and say, love this post, or just mention something you like about it, so they know you're not just a bot.
Hmm.
And be authentic and say, would I be able to share this on my feed? Or I'm hoping to share, please let me know if, you grant permission, something like that. Because that just shows that you respect them and their craft, their visual storytelling, whatever, enough
Hmm.
to ask them to repost it on your timeline.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
good advice for sure.
Because it's going to live there, right? It's not just a fleeting 24-hour share like
Hmm.
stories are. So you want to be sure that you're being very respectful of their work.
Right, for sure. Now, thinking about, I've heard and read, and everyone's talking about video. Would you say that that's something that people should learn and focus on and do more of in order to grow their audience? And especially for product businesses, would you recommend video? And then, if so, there are so many formats of video. There's YouTube, IGTV,
I
Facebook
know.
Live. So it's kind of hard sometimes to know which one to focus on and what should we jump on.
100%. Video is leading in every category, like every
Mm,
analytic pretty much that I read, every stat says you need to go to video. So whether
okay.
that's getting a simple tool that allows you to make little, almost like stop motion animation type videos, where you just add photos. Let's say I don't know who's familiar with Canva or Photoshop, and I don't know what their skills are, but if you are a retailer and you have a marketing department or someone who does your marketing for you, they can often make flat lays or little things where they add an image at a time, and they save each image, and then you can make like a little stop motion animation. And there are tools out there that like a lay person could use. Anything from that type of video all the way through to taking just video with your smartphone, but make sure your lighting's good. Again, we're not looking for perfection as an audience, right? We don't need to have it completely curated and pristine, but it does need to be nice to look at. So again, think of yourself as your audience. What do you want to see? Do you want to see some poorly lit, grainy, like not colorful, like video? No, you don't. You want to see something that's uplifting, that's bright. Go outside, even on a gray day, you're still going to get decent ambient light, and shoot it with a decent smartphone. That is totally fine. You don't have to do all the other artsy stuff, but just try, because it does get people engaged. The minute they see a video, they stop. and they want to look at it for at least a few seconds. And all of the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, they're all looking for time spent on the platform.
Right.
So that's really important when they see that there are creators that have higher average times on the platform, like their audience stays on their profile longer than the average, they will 100% put you at the top of a feed or add you to that search page on Instagram, where you see all those pictures that are related to other images you've searched or looked at in the past that are like the top pictures or videos. You will be added to those pages if they find that you are one of these people that keeps your audience on their platform. So very, very important.
Oh, so good for engagement and growing your audience.
Totally good.
And would you recommend a specific one like IGTV over, I don't know, YouTube or whatever, or just wherever you are?
I would say IGTV obviously is like the sister or the next level, I guess, of Insta stories. So just for those who don't know, if you're creating your product video and it's more than 1 minute long, Instagram will have you like boot you kind of to IGTV. Like it won't let you do anything more than a minute in a story. And it breaks that out into 15-second segments. So you're only allowed to have 4 of those. Unless you want to do another video and keep doing 15-minute segments, in your stories. But if you're going to be on there for longer than, I'd say, 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, definitely do IGTV. IGTV is more, it leans towards the smartphone user, which makes sense, right? Because IG is native to smartphones and mobile devices. YouTube will be more, because also it's different orientation. It's generally horizontal. That's going to be more for like a home studio or something where you're setting up kind of, for lack of a better term, like a proper photo shoot. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So you have like a little, even if it's just like your smartphone, but it's usually on a tripod or like some sort of little stand or somewhere where it's, you're not moving. They're not as active like the videos are not as active, and you're showing them something. You're doing, a product demonstration, or you're showing them how you could use the products in various ways. Are you doing a cooking tutorial, whatever that is?
Right. Okay.
And that's kind of where I think YouTube and IGTV can be different. But again, IGTV is just more spontaneous looking, not that you can't take a video first and then upload it, but it's generally more of a, hey, like join me in my kitchen if we're using the cooking theme, to use that theme again. Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. I always just got confused about IGTV versus YouTube.
Right. And the different orientations kind of, you can't really, unless you're going to put a vertical video on YouTube, which doesn't usually translate very well to viewership.
Right.
It's really hard to use that content again. Like you can't really, dual purpose that.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
And any other last tips for growing your audience? Because I know people are always just focused on the number of followers that they have and trying to grow their audience. Yeah. I guess it's also about engagement, is what I heard. So what would you say just top tips for growing your audience, growing your engagement? I guess video could be one of them.
Right. So growing your audience, I tell my clients this all the time, please don't be worried about the number that you have. That number is just a number. And I know it's really hard. We're raised in an atmosphere of like, I need to get A's and everything's graded and, out of 10 and this and that. So just try not to worry about the numbers. If you have solid, authentic engagement and really good quality content that's consistent, and you are, pinpointing the audience you want and reeling them in, like actually appealing to them and getting them to come to your page or your profile rather, that's really how you want to grow your audience. Don't worry if it's not in the millions. I have clients who get better engagement and only have, 500 or 600 Instagram followers than some pages that have, like 7,000. It's just a very different way of looking at things. If your engagement's good, then the people who should be seeing you are going to see you, right? They're going to share it with their friends and that sort of thing. So I would say, if you're a product-based business, run some contests. it seems like, oh, do I really want to get people that way? Yeah, you do. The reason being, if they weren't interested in your product, they wouldn't enter. The second thing is, when they do enter, they're probably going to, or when they do enter and then whoever wins, they're probably going to be sharing what they've won on social. Win-win. Right?
True. Totally.
It makes sense. Yeah. And they're going to share and they're going to say, this is amazing. You should try this. And they're going to tag a friend or whatever. And again, it all depends on your entries on the different platforms. You can definitely, get more engagement that way and have them share with their friends. But that's what I would say, contests, authentic, visually appealing, visually appealing content, and being social. So going out there, putting yourself out there, commenting, engaging with other brands, business owners, influencers, whomever you feel has a similar audience that you also feel is in line with your brand or your product. And maybe go follow some of those people as well. Take a look at who their followers are. If it's a brand you admire, especially, definitely do that. Right. And sometimes if I get a follow myself, I'll say, oh, who is this person? And then I'll go and I'll say, wow, their stuff looks amazing. And I will want to follow them as well.
Right.
Don't do it just as a follow exercise. Do it as, truly look at the profiles and see if it's someone or something, a brand that you truly think you'd like to follow. Don't just follow for the sake of following. That's a big no-no.
That's a good point too. Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been super valuable. I probably could go on and on about this because I think there's so much to learn with social media. How can people follow you and find you? Could you give us your links?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Lisapedersen Media. And Pedersen is spelled interestingly, so you're going to want to check the show notes for that.
Okay, yeah, I'll link that.
And my website, Lisapedersen.ca. And I'm excited. I'm actually going to be having a free challenge coming up soon.
Yes, tell us all about that. Yeah,
all of the business owners out there that are feeling a little bit stressed and a little bit frustrated and just kind of not sure what they should be posting right now. This is going to be a free challenge to get everybody kind of on board with some really good daily prompts and some really good foundational information about social, just to help them, best practices and stuff, to help them get a solid plan and get a solid month of content on their feed that will hopefully resonate with their audience.
Oh, that's super valuable. When does that start?
I haven't quite put the finishing touches on it, but I'm looking at the first or second week of May. So you can check out or watch out for that rather.
Okay, perfect. And they can find it on your website?
Yeah, Lisapedersen.ca. There'll be a link in the top nav as well as a pop-up asking for registrants. If they want to join, they just add their email and click register.
Awesome. So I'll put that link in the show notes. And anything else that you have coming up that's exciting?
Yeah, I have an online course, Social Media Foundations, set for early June. And that's going to be a really great group of business owners that want to do a deep dive into their social and really learn the foundations of how they should set up their pages, the kinds of information that should be in their bios, basically picking their platforms, a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, but just doing a deeper dive. And of course, individually, customized for them. And then working with me in a Facebook group. Every week there'll be online Facebook coaching, Facebook Lives, where they can answer or they can ask questions and I'll answer. And there's just going to be hopefully some really great back and forth with all of the members. So I'm looking forward to that. So
great. Awesome. Thanks. I'm sure everyone can't wait for those. So check out the links in the show notes. And Lisa, I'm sure we'll speak again, and best of luck with the challenge and everything that you've got going on. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Productpreneur Podcast. If you loved this episode, we'd be so grateful if you could take a sec to subscribe, share it, and review it on Apple Podcasts. Your review will help more women build their own dream product business. By the way, if you have any feedback, comments, or questions, email me at info@nicoledelarzac.com. Until next time, keep dreaming up those product ideas.